going to do today. The topic we're going to be talking about is called the question of learning mitzvahs from before Mattan Torah, and I'm going to explain it. But I want to give a Hagdama. I want to give a preparation, an introduction. The Jewish nation was born at HaShmini. In 2448, on the 6th or 7th day of Shivan, when the Torah was given to us, it was Shabbat, the Gemara says, we became a people. And it says in Psukim, in Yecheskel, the Hasidus brings down that we were born as a nation. Until then, we were not a nation. Although we had an identity, we had a genealogy, we had a culture, we had a religion from Avrohom. Nevertheless, according to Torah, the birth of the Jewish people begins with Mattan Torah. Until then, we were not a nation. Between Avrohom Avinu and Mattan Torah is exactly 500 years. Shintog, to the day, to the year. He was born in 1948. The Torah was given in 2448. That's how it works out. It's simple. The math is simple because Yitzchak was born in 2048 and Avrohom was 100. And between Yitzchak and Mitzrayim is 400 years. During that time, a lot of things were done to prepare for the birth of the Jewish nation. 1948, yeah. That's not a shame by that. It was already observed. You have the first one to notice. A lot of things happened between Avrohom Avinu and Mattan Torah, but none of them made us into a nation until Mattan Torah. What's the difference? The difference is simple. And you could see it in a lot of ideas. For example, there's a huge question in Halacha, in Shvatim, and even in Halacha, whether the Shvatim had a din of Yidin or B'nei Nech. Obviously, for Yidin. It's possible that the Shvatim, their sons, had a din of B'nei Nech, of Goyim. Oh, okay. What happens when the Jewish people become a nation? Of course, many, many things in Halacha and in Torah. But one of the things that happens when the Jewish people becomes a nation is that it's a one-way door. The definition of a people is tzibur, tzadikim, benyanim, urishoyim, with the vav chibur. It's brought in Shulchan Aruch, in the Lavush, that in Kippur at night, you say, Ono matirim l'spal, l'mavayonim, you give special permission to pray with sinners, and the Lavush, a shul where there's no sinners, don't daven Yom Kippur. A shul where there's no sinners, davenisht. There has to be Avariyanim, sinners. Tzadikim, Beinanim, and Rishoyim. That's why in some communities they cover the lottery, they choose a volunteer to do the Aveda for them. I can't daven it. But in any case, this change has a number of ramifications. And I guess we'll put it this way. Until Mattan Torah, Jewish, if there was such a thing, was a business of a tzadikim. It was a personal thing, it was an individual thing, and it was not necessarily hereditary. Avrohom was a Yid, Yishmael wasn't. Yitzchak was a Yid, Esav was, as they say in the Gemara, but his children were not. Yaakov was a Yid, and it's possible that the Shvatim weren't. In the Beis HaEitzes, or Beis HaEngel, he brings the whole thing that it's possible that Apidin, the Shvatim have been in For sure they didn't practice mitzvahs. Yeah, except for the Shabbat mitzvahs in Nenech.
Even the same idea that the Yaakov, like those things in him?
The others did the mitzvahs. Why?
That's the exception by all of them.
What was the exception?
What were huge tzaddikim?
Yeah.
So what is
mitzvahs, you mean? They didn't do mitzvahs.
It emphasizes that the Gerus comes from the other side, from the Gerus side.
Yeah, but the Jewish people, even if they were Jewish, something new begins at Mattan Torah. In other words, even if you're going to follow those opinions that the Shvatim were Jewish, their children probably were not, but Mattan Torah is a renewal.
Okay, so what do you mean the children were not?
The Shvatim's children.
Were not Jewish?
Yeah.
When you say Jewish, you mean?
Halachically, Apidin. Apidin Torah, they were not Jewish.
They had the Bris Mila?
No, first of all, they did not. In fact, in the Mitzrayim, they didn't have this middle. They said the Chumash Vash.
I talking about the Yid, not the immediate children. You're talking about the Yid in the Mitzrayim.
Yeah. And second of all, they were not mechuyev to do mitzvahs. They came to Mitzrayim and ate meat and drank wine with Yosef. They didn't go into the kitchen and check the kashrus. And the meat made it. But the wine is like nesach. Like nesach is enough. He said, ooh, you made it. How you doing, brother? Sit down, make yourself comfortable. Okay, he has no idea.
$50 fine for you. Don't worry.
He already paid it, but he's trying to. By sharing it with you, he's hoping to muffle the pain.
It's the first time I ever heard something. It's unbelievable.
There's a lot of fun to talk about it.
Yeah.
Give him l'chaim.
Oh,
He's
sure.
not driving, I don't think.
No.
Good.
I don't know how to drive.
So you can. But in any case,
Have you ever had this before called scotch?
in any case,
I've heard of it. Okay, you go ahead.
in any case, Mattan Torah is certainly l'chaim v'bracha. Yeah, a turning point, because now we became a nation. Until then, Yiddishkeit was individuals. Maybe it was many, maybe it was thousands, maybe it was millions, but it was an individual event that had to do with Avodas Hashem. The Ovis had a unique category. They were considered Yiddish and Shamas. Avrohom is considered the first Jew, at least spiritually. But the Jewish nation as a nation begins with Mattan Torah.
Just one question, I want, and I'll let it go. So the Yidden that didn't observe the Mitzrayim, i.e., Nesach and all those things, first of all, they wanted those halachas around those days.
Of course they were.
They were around?
Avrohom, Yitzchak, and Yaakov kept all 630
well,
mitzvahs.
they kept it because they were the others, but I'm saying in the Yidden and Mitzrayim, they didn't keep the Taryag mitzvahs, but not only that, it wasn't around yet.
They had it from the others.
Mattan Torah.
They had it from the others.
Messiah.
Yeah, and it's so
But
complicated.
did they come out of Mitzrayim, those Yidden that didn't observe?
Of course.
So
They became the Jewish nation. There's a Ramban that says that the whole year of mitzvahs is only next to know. The Ramban says even the others didn't keep mitzvahs. It's very dynamic. There's a lot of details, and it's a class unto itself. It's another whole discussion. It's not where I want to go. So there are a lot of things that changed before Mattan Torah and after Mattan Torah. One of the things that changed is the concept of mitzvahs. The idea that we do physical acts, and we don't only say that these physical acts are symbols or ideas, but there's godliness in the act itself, there's holiness in the ritual, begins with Mattan Torah. In other words, why do you wear tefillin? You don't wear tefillin because you want to bind your mind and your heart. Binding your mind and your heart is an explanation for tefillin. You wear tefillin because the godliness in the leather straps and the leather boxes and in the act of putting them on. This idea certainly did not exist before Mattan Torah. Even if we were to argue that Avrohom Avinu wore tefillin, the Gashmias, which he didn't, because Israel says that Yaakov Avinu wore tefillin with those sticks that he put into the trough when he gave the animals to drink. But even if we were to argue that the others put on tefillin, the inyan of tefillin was a symbol. The physical act of putting on the tefillin was a symbol of mind over matter, of redemption, of a unique relationship with Hashem. But the concept of doing a physical act that's godly begins with Mattan Torah. Okay? So when we became a nation, a lot of things changed. First of all, we're bound, and it's a matrilineal continuum. Any woman who's Jewish has secured Judaism for her and all of her descendants and female descendants forever and ever, and you can't get out of that bond. The Pasuk says, "Vayeva Hashem Slayach." The Eibush is never going to let Jews get away with being blamed. He's always going to lasso them back in, and unfortunately, sometimes it's rather painful. So Mattan Torah becomes, the birth of the Jewish people becomes binding. One of the aspects of the binding nature of Yiddishkeit that begins with Mattan Torah is the idea of mitzvahs. We have 630 mitzvahs. You can't add to them, you can't subtract from them, and you have to do them, and you have to do them literally and physically, and the rest. Before Mattan Torah, everything was different. We didn't have that many mitzvahs. Not everybody kept them. Avrohom may have done mitzvahs, Yishmael didn't have to. Esav may have been obligated to do mitzvahs. I have a suspicion he wasn't so religious. But Esav's children didn't have to. It wasn't binding. The idea of a nation, of a continuum, didn't exist. It was a personal union. Even if we're going to say they did mitzvahs, it was a personal union of doing mitzvahs. To say this philosophically, we would say the following. Before Mattan Torah, there were big tzaddikim. Very big tzaddikim. Perhaps Very, very big tzaddikim. Perhaps tzaddikim that didn't exist later. Like Chanoich, the Sforim say about Chanoich, and Mr. Shalach, and he was very holy men. But it was a personal business. It was them and God. Mattan Torah marks the birth of a Jewish nation. And that's why it marks the beginning of what the Gemara says, hatred. The Gemara says, why is the HaShmini called Sinai? Because this is where the source of hatred in the world comes from. You choose a people, and you don't identify the nation by their individual merits. You can have a bomb, a yit, he's chosen. It's the source of this. The source of hatred in the world is HaShmini. Until then, they were righteous people who had relationships with God. They may have been prophets, and they may have even done mitzvahs. It was a personal affair. Our focus is going to be specifically on mitzvahs and commandments. Before we got the Torah, we had commandments. After we got the Torah, we also had commandments. In fact, many of the commandments we had before Mattan Torah, we were given again at Mattan Torah. The best example of it is the 7 laws of Noach. Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. Right? It says in Rambam, Hashem gave Adam Rishon 6. And if you'll think about it, the reason Adam Rishon had only 6, because killing an animal was not only murder, it was murder the same as killing a man. So you only had 6 commandments. There was no commandment against Evim and Achai, because killing an animal was Ritzicha, and there's in Mashmos and Rashi like this. There's different, I once had a discussion about this, there's in Mashmos and Rashi about Sheshnech, that killing an animal is not only you're not allowed to eat meat, it was murder. Then by Noach, Hashem permitted us to eat meat, and he added the law against Evim and Achai. So the Rambam writes, one of the most famous Babbacher Rambams, that when you teach a guy the 7 laws of Noach, there's several aspects. A, he has to do them. B, he shouldn't do them because they make sense. He should do them because they're a divine commandment. C, it's not sufficient that he does them because they're a divine commandment. He must do them because they were commanded at Sinai. And only then is he Chasidi of Israel, is he a righteous Gentile. He's a Schwarzer taxi driver, an African American. He's an African actually. Taxi driver on Kingston in Union. A very intelligent fellow. I like to fabling with him. I don't even take the taxis, but there's one African guy, very bright fellow. So he gets very upset when we tell him that I told him the 7 laws of Noach come from Moses. That's not true. They come to Noah. So we had this whole discussion. The Rambam says it's true they were given to Noach. But a guy who wants to be considered a righteous Gentile, Chasidi Yom Ha'olam, that the Rambam holds and the Zohar says, has a portion in eternal life in the Olam Haba, it's not sufficient to do the 7 mitzvahs. It's not even sufficient to do the mitzvahs because God gave them, because of Sinai. And there's a whole series of insights as to why.
Can you explain that to him?
He was arguing about the very fact. He wasn't debating the theory and the philosophy. The point is, the idea of birurim and the idea of betachtonim, the mystical significance of mitzvahs didn't begin till Sinai. The moral and ethical started before, but the idea that when you keep these mitzvahs, you elevate the world, begins at Sinai, and that's why they do it.
So implicit in that is the acceptance by the Goy of the Jews as being the chosen people.
Perhaps. You would have to, not perhaps, for sure, because there's a centricity in Moshe. Not just God, but Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, but there are examples for the Jewish people as well. Be fruitful and multiply. Pidya v'rivya. The pasuk in Genesis, Parsha Tazriah. We don't practice the mitzvah of having children because it's Shesel and Bereishis. It was repeated again at Sinai. Bris Mila, circumcise your sons. We're going to be discussing momentarily. We don't do a Bris Mila because God gave it to Abraham. We do it because it was repeated again. You know where?
Sinai.
In Parsha Tazriah. Look inside.
Sinai.
This is Parsha. That's why we're doing this. It's my excuse. UvaYom HaShmini Yimol Allah. On the 8th day you have to circumcise the Allah. And the Rambam says the source of Bris Mila is not the 25 or so psukim in Parshas Lech Lecha. It's 5 words in the beginning of Parsha Tazriah. This pasuk is not necessary. It serves no direct purpose to the discussion at hand, and it's here because this is the source of Bris Mila. A third example is the sciatic nerve. The sciatic nerve is mentioned in Parshas Vayishlach, and is not repeated a second time later on in the Chumash. So we're momentarily going to see a Mishnah and a Rambam that say simply this. The pasuk in Parshas Vayishlach that says, don't eat sciatic nerve, was said by Moshe, and he put it in, he amended, he added it to the book of Genesis, but actually it was added by Moshe Rabbeinu at Sinai. That's the source of Gid HaNosh. And we can go on and on and on. There are many, many different examples for this, including very moral mitzvahs, like burying the dead, like visiting the sick, like honoring parents. Many of these ideas predate Mattan Torah. We don't do any of them because of what happened before. We do it only because of HaShmini. HaShmini, something very significant occurred on many, many levels, on mystical levels, on Kabbalistic levels, on halachic levels. And we're Jewish because of Sinai. So, we, again, begin from the beginning again. We do Bris Mila because of this pasuk, not because of Parsha Tazriah. And I printed the whole Erech Chaim HaKadosh, I'm not sure why, but there you have it. If you don't mind turning to the second page, you have a Mishnayis and the commentary of Rambam, right there. The second page. There's no English. The English is there, the glasses are deficient. The Southerners, they can't come in time, they have a problem with their eyes. Okay, Rabbi Isai, on page Kuf Mem, the last line at the top of the page is a Mishnah in Chulin. It's talking about the laws of the sciatic nerve, Gid HaNosh. And it says, you have it, you see it? Noiheg b'tahira, the prohibition against eating a sciatic nerve is true only of kosher species. The einei noiheg b'tmeya, it's not relevant to today's species. Meaning to say, if you eat the sciatic nerve of a horse, you're liable for eating treif, but you don't get flogged twice. A, for eating treif, B, for eating the sciatic nerve, even though it's a classic case of it's a chalalisa because it's a meisif. You would not get twice malchus, even though you're doing two sins. You're eating a treif of species, and you're eating the sciatic nerve. So the Mishnah says there is no prohibition against eating a treif of sciatic nerve. There's a prohibition against eating treif, but not the sciatic nerve. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. He says no. Akpetmeya. The prohibition against sciatic nerve would be true of a non-kosher species. If you ate the sciatic nerve of a horse, you get flogged twice. Once for horse and once for sciatic nerve. And his proof is very simple. Where is the sciatic nerve mentioned in the Chumash? Omer Rabbi Yehuda says Rabbi Yehuda. It was the sons of Jacob. In the book of Genesis, it's mentioned by Yishlach, that the prohibition against eating the sciatic nerve appears. And they were able to eat treif. No, so were they eaten or not? The Bnei Yankov ate treif. Not just not kosher, they could eat. They could eat a lizard if they wanted.
So what was the problem with Esau bringing the dog to Yitzchak?
I don't know what you're talking about. But I'm in it. Give me a second. Okay? So Rabbi Yehuda says the prohibition against eating the sciatic nerve was before Mattan Torah, so it wasn't bound to kosher kind. Omru loy, says the Mishnah, the Chachamim told Rabbi Yehuda, you're wrong. Sinai nesa. The prohibition against eating sciatic nerve was given at Sinai. El shenichta ben koyvei. Moshe Rabbeinu decided to put that pasuk, al kein li'echad ne'esov gid HaNosh adei yom hazeh, in Parsha Tazriah, but this pasuk was written by Moshe, and it was not written by the others. This is the Mishnah. It's a very famous Mishnah. Good evening and good evening. Hello, welcome. Now, Rabbi Isai, forgive me, let's read that Rambam, and I made an arrow, especially for the English-speaking people. There we go. You found the arrow. Good evening, good evening. Hello. Hello, welcome. Make yourself comfortable. Let's have that.
Yaakov asked the Gid HaNosh, and they were still allowed to eat behemoth Tameya.
No, yeah, according to Rabbi Yehuda.
Mamela, therefore.
The Gid HaNosh is also in place for species too. So the person today ate Gid HaNosh from a horse.
Yeah, but why is it because of this that it's also for Tameya also?
Because since it was given to the Shvatim, according to Rabbi Yehuda.
Right.
And they didn't have the Tayag Mitzvah. So Gid HaNosh was unique.
Okay, right.
So Gid HaNosh was broader than kosher species. So
right.
The
And then in addition to that, by Sinai they got the Tameya.
That's
two
right.
separate
That's right.
things.
Two separate lavim, so you get twice malchus. Now, I want to quickly bring you up to date. Rabbi, you know what? I want to tell you the Nakud of what we're discussing, okay? We're discussing the idea that all of Yiddishkeit comes from Sinai. And even the mitzvahs that we got before Sinai, we don't do them because we got them before Sinai, we do them because we got them at Sinai. The first example is Bris Mila. Why do we do Bris Mila? We don't do Bris Mila because we got it at Avrohom Avinu, we do Bris Mila because we got an Sinai. Similarly, Gidar Nosha. Anyway, let's read that Rambam. L'das Rabbi Yehuda, in the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, ha'oichel chazayis migidar nosha b'hem etmei, if a person ate a chazayis of the sciatic nerve of a treifa species, chai shtei mal, if he will be flogged twice, mishum b'hem etmei, mishum gidar nosha, if eating a treifa species, that's for the gidar nosha. So the Rambam ve'ein halacha Rabbi Yehuda, the halacha of Rabbi Yehuda. Now, says the Rambam, the sin libcha, apply your heart, l'klal hagadol hazeh, to this great rule, hamuv of the Mishnah Zu, what this Mishnah brings. But who Amram, and basically what this Mishnah is saying to us is Misinai Nesar. Yiddishkeit comes from Sinai. Every prohibition comes from Sinai. But who shot the tzarech ladas? You have to know. Shekol ma she'anu nizharim mimenu, anything that we do not do, or we do nowadays. Ein anu oisim zois. We don't do it because it was given to Avrohom or to Adam or to Noach or to anybody else. Only because Hashem gave it to Moshe Rabbeinu. Not because it was given to the prophets that preceded Moshe, only to Moshe Rabbeinu. For example, we're not allowed to eat the liver of a living animal. Not because Hashem outlawed eating the liver of a living animal to the Bnei Noach. Moshe outlawed Sinai when he was told at Sinai, top of the next page, that it's still also David min hachai. The next example is, we do not circumcise because Avrohom circumcised himself and his family. Hashem commanded us to Moshe to do circumcision. And the source of it is our pasuk. On the 8th day they should circumcise the flesh of their arla. The same is to the sciatic nerve. Our not eating the sciatic nerve is not based on the prohibition that Jacob made. And he concludes, this is why the Gemara says that all 613 mitzvahs were given to Moshe, though we had a handful before, but all the mitzvahs that we practice them because of Moshe.
But
okay?
is the reason of Gidar Nosha, even though it was mentioned in Sinai, and that's the reason that...
Because of the story of Yaakov.
But is it because it's based on the Malach over there, that hit him by...
That's why they put it there. It's the Parsha Tazriah. Now, Rabbi Shai, this is a halachic concept, a concept in Jewish law, that says, we do not learn any aspect of Judaism from before the Torah was given. What is considered the beginning of the Torah? The middle of Parshas Boy. When we get the first mitzvah, what's the first mitzvah? The new moon. That's the beginning of the 630 mitzvahs. Everything till the beginning of Parshas Boy doesn't count. And of course, there are those who wonder, start the Torah, Rashi says in the beginning of the Chumash, begin the Chumash with Achavish Alachem. If we don't learn any laws from Genesis in the first 2 sections and a half of Exodus, why they're written in the Torah, and with all kinds of excuses, Ma'asav Hashem and Labanim, what does it say in Rashi? All kinds of explanations. But we do not learn anything in Yiddishkeit from before the first mitzvah, Achavish Alachem. This concept is brought in Mishnah. It's brought in Gemara and Yerushalmi. I saw the footnotes and I'm well prepared. I gave you a lot of stuff. There's a Tosfos and Chulin which brings it down, and it's this Rambam. The question is why? Why don't we learn any aspects of Yiddishkeit from what's written before? Who cares? And to be sure, it's complicated. Why? When you make a Bris Mila, what do you say? We were sanctified with His commandments and commanded. To bring him into the covenant of Abraham our father. If we're not doing it because of Abraham, why are we mentioning Abraham? And the same is true with Gidar Nosha. Everybody knows why don't you eat the sciatic nerve? Because of Yaakov Avinu. And they can go on and on. So what's the deal? Why don't we learn before Mattan Torah? On the other hand, before Mattan Torah is written, before Mattan Torah is also Torah. So why? Why is it Torah and yet it isn't Torah? Why is it there and yet we don't learn from it? This is the essential question. And I'm sure there are many answers. There are many answers in halacha. I would like to offer you really, on some level, a personal comment. I'm talking my own pshat. But I'm basing this pshat on the sichos. On the sichos of the Rebbe about before Mattan Torah. How do we view life until the Jewish nation was born? How do we view the life and times of those righteous men, those individual people that I spoke about before, the Adams, the Sheshes, the Chanoichs, the Neseshelach, the Lemach, the Noach, the Shems and the Avens, the Avrohom, the individual tzaddikim who lived during those 26 generations? How do we view their Yiddishkeit as opposed to our own? And by analyzing the difference between the way they were Jewish and we were Jewish, the way they served God and the way we do, we'll gain an insight into this halacha that I made in Mattan Torah. And here's the deal. It's a double-edged sword. There are two sides to this coin. If you'll turn the page, I printed two pieces of two sichos about Bris Mila. Okay, they're both from Chelik Lamed Hey. Page 56, 57, 58, and 59 is the first piece. And then page 48 and 49 is the second piece. And as I said, we're about to read two contradictory, two opposite reasons why we don't learn from Mattan Torah. For purposes of brevity, I'll tell you by heart. Maybe I'll show you a couple of words inside. But I want to give you the Gedank called Peh. Orally, I want to tell you the thought. Two reasons. You know why we don't learn from Mattan Torah? Simple. Number one, when God created the world, it says in the Medrash, every Lubavitcher knows this. It's all over the Sichos and the Memorim. Hashem made a decree. The decree says that there's a separation between the heaven and the earth. The heaven cannot descend to the earth cannot rise up to the heavens. That means you want to be close to God, you have to go away from the world. You want to be in the world, you have to depart from God. You can't have it both ways. You want to be a tzaddik, you have to be a recluse, you have to be a hermit, you have to be just a punish, totally removed from the world. Practically, what does it mean? Practically, it means that a relationship with God is a spiritual event, exclusively. There's no such thing as physical life being a part of a relationship with God. We make physical things holy every day. You make bracha on food, you eat it, the food is holy. You take leather, you make a mezuzah out of it, the mezuzah is holy. There was no such possibility. When Hashem created the world, you couldn't bring God down. You could go to God, but you can't bring God to you. So there was no such thing as physical reality being godly. Impossible. Physical reality was base. It was elementary, it was physical, and that's all. Therefore, when we say that Avrohom did mitzvahs, he didn't do physical acts because they were meaningless. Right? It says in Chumash, Avrohom ate matzah. When you eat matzah and I eat matzah, the priority is that we eat the bread. We're meditating, we're not meditating. It happens to be that matzah, even according to the deists that hold mitzvah sichas kavana, tachva legodne, matzah, if you tasted it, you mekayim the mitzvah matzah, even if you didn't have kavana, because the taste is the kavana. You ate the bread. If Avrohom Avinu ate matzah, the unleavened bread was insignificant. It was the meditation, the humility, the lack of ego. The physical bread had no sanctity. There was no way to bring God down to the physical level. There was a division, a separation. Therefore, we're practicing a whole different religion. Judaism as we know it is centered on mitzvahs, on rituals, with a special emphasis that these are not symbolic acts. Somebody who tells you that Judaism has symbols, to use the word symbolism about a mitzvah, pardon my honesty, is heresy. Mitzvahs are not symbolic. They're divine acts. They're divine acts. The flag of the United States of America is a symbol.
Israeli flag.
Or whatever it is, it's a symbol. The mitzvahs are not symbols. They're godly acts. Before Mattan Torah, the very same act was a symbol. Because you couldn't bring God into physical things. Why can we not learn from Avrohom's circumcision? It was a different act. Avrohom's physical act of circumcision was a symbol of something. Our physical act of circumcision is a godly effect in the physical body of a person. Avrohom Avinu's matzahs were a symbol of something. Our matzahs are a physical act. There's no comparison whatsoever. And when you read this Hasidic position, which is the classic Hasidic position. Most Maimonim give you this position. You come away with, we're better than them. The others couldn't bring God into physical things, and aren't we wonderful? We could. This position underscores that we're at an advantage over the others. The Medrash says it. The mitzvah the others did was like a good smell. The mitzvahs we do was like owning the whole bottle of perfume, having the actual substance, the shemen. We can bring godliness into physical things. This is one side of the equation. On this basis, why don't we learn from before Mattan Torah? We're better than before Mattan Torah. Okay, this is the classic position. But there's another point of view. Not so frequently cited, but often enough. And this is actually a much more logical position. Who were the others? They were Makavah Falakus. They were a chariot for godliness. Chassidus says that when they slept, they were a chariot for godliness. Their whole reality was servitude to God. They had no resistance whatsoever. They were in a perpetual state of sacrifice to Hashem. In a perpetual state of Mesiras Nefesh. We can't do that. When the Eibishter gave birth to a nation, by definition, he accepts the fact that we can't all be tzaddikim. If Hashem wanted to have a bunch of righteous people scattered throughout history who were serving him on levels of self-sacrifice, he wouldn't declare them the Jewish people. By definition, the creation of the Jewish people is a cross-section. They're a nation like everybody else, with every variety of human possibility, including the most corrupt and evil. And together they make up a people that's called God's chosen people that practice his mitzvahs. Before then, Yiddishkeit was a personal business of very righteous men. In other words, Avrohom, Yitzchak, and Yaakov stood in a perpetual readiness in the Mesiras Nefesh. Says that they didn't need mitzvahs. When you are constantly in a mindset of Mesiras Nefesh, if your whole reality is sacrifice to God, you need Shabbos and kosher. Your whole existence is godliness. In other words, why can we not learn from them? Because we can't imitate them. We can't possibly duplicate the example they set. The others stood in perpetual Mesiras Nefesh for Hashem. And Avrohom Avinu did Bris Mila with a card. When we do Bris Mila, it's an opportunity to spend some money to just neighbors to the baby and to get some presents, I don't know what, to make our grandmother happy. Because we named after the elder's age. Avrohom Avinu, everything he did, he was in the perpetual state of Mesiras Nefesh. When the Rebbe uses an expression in the Sichos, he was above the category of above and below. There's an above and a below, there's a Mila and a Mata, and there's a separation. What's high can't descend low, what's low can't rise high. Says that Avrohom was above the high and above the low. It was a non-issue to him. So this is another reason. You know what we can learn from the others? Because we're not the others. The others didn't need a Mattan Torah, the others didn't need a Bittul Zayda, they didn't need physical acts. Symbols were sufficient for them, because when your whole reality is Mesiras Nefesh, you don't need mitzvahs. An example, lived in a cave 13 years. What did he do? He studied Torah. He didn't have a sukkah, he didn't have a shover, he didn't have a lulav, he didn't have chalas, he didn't have wine, he didn't have matzah, he didn't have mother, he had nothing. He had Torah. And Mesiras Nefesh, he was above it. So if you ask the question, why can we not learn from the others? Why does Yiddishkeit have to be original at Har Sinai? Two reasons. A, our Yiddishkeit is better than theirs. B, their Yiddishkeit is better than ours. Our Yiddishkeit is better than theirs because we bring godliness into the physical world. They could not. B, their Yiddishkeit is better than ours. They stood in perpetual Mesiras Nefesh. And we're off. Right? Those are the two sides to the coin.
He's Peshat.
You like that?
That's a simple
To be sure, these two sides of the coin are actually compatible. These two extremes are compatible. The idea of bringing godliness down has to do with limitation. There's a world, you want to bring God into the world. When you're serving Hashem without any limitation, you don't need any conformity. I'll give you an example. In Hasidic thought, what's the difference between Shema and Shmona Esrei? Shema is Mesiras Nefesh. It ain't complicated. You use of what it is. Shmoneh Esrei is bringing God into your life. So you ask separately for wisdom, for healing, for repentance, for not suffering anymore, for Parnasa, for Mashiach, for the righteous. The whole design of the Amidah is asking for specific requests. Why? Because in the Amidah, Shmoneh Esrei is bringing godliness into the world. Every bracha has a different form. When you give yourself away to Hashem completely, as is the declaration, it ain't complicated, it's simple. So the others served Hashem on a level of Mesiras Nefesh. It was simple. The specifics of the mitzvah were not that consequential. It was the Mesiras Nefesh. For us, we're simple people. We need the form and the structure, but the alternative is the form and the structure, which we have, which on the one hand is because of our limitations, is on the other hand a process of bringing godliness into the world. You get it? So we can't learn from before Mattan Torah because their lives are different than ours. A, we can bring godliness into the world. They couldn't. B, they were in a perpetual state of Mesiras Nefesh, and we can. Now, this is all the introduction. What do I want to say? What I want to suggest is this: that every single mitzvah written in the Chumash before Mattan Torah has an element of Mesiras Nefesh. We have 613 mitzvahs. A handful of those mitzvahs were already written before, right? Bris Mila, Gidanosha, even the mentions, the Rambam mentions. Why I mentioned every mitzvah written before Mattan Torah has an element of Mesiras Nefesh. In other words, there are regular mitzvahs and there are special mitzvahs. Each one of the mitzvahs that we have from before, in other words, that we inherited from the others, that we now do, we inherit the quality of Mesiras Nefesh from them as well. There's a difference, for example, between the way we would keep Shabbos and the way we would keep Pesach. Shabbos begins with Mattan Torah, which is also questionable, but let's say for the sake of argument. Bris Mila we do for two reasons. A, we were given it at Sinai, and B, it begins with Sinai, but we had it from before. Gidanasha we do because we're given it at Sinai. We had it before. And the same is true of all of the mitzvahs of Mattan Torah. My suggestion is, based on these positions in the Sichos, that even though we do the mitzvahs because of the others, there's an aspect of these mitzvahs that we learn from before. And this extra aspect is the aspect of Mesiras Nefesh. That's what I'm trying to suggest. Okay, and I have considerable proof from a variety of different Sichos, a little bit, more than a little bit. I'm cutting and pasting, I'm squeezing, but it seems to me that, why is the Chumash written till Parshas Boy? Because in the Chumash till Parshas Boy you have Mesiras Nefesh. You have higher than Atzilus, higher than order. Beginning with the mitzvahs, godliness comes down. Coming down is good and bad. Coming down means that we can relate to it, and coming down means that it's limited. The infinity of Hashem is in Sefer Bereshis. Like it said, Bavusta Sheep with the original, I'll tell you a story. So, the stories are always wonderful. I think I once told you the story before. That Isaac Homler, one of the great Hasidim of the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, came to Yerushalayim, to the great and holy Yerushalayim, and he spent Shabbos there. And Isaac Homler was a big maven. And he paid very careful attention to every tnuah of the Yerushalayim. He wanted to learn from him. Sunday morning, there was a formal event where all the guests for Shabbos presented their issues. And it was in a public place. The Yerushalayim sat by a table. One chassid was called the Makurev, the intermediary. Each chassid presented his issues to the Makurev presented them to the Holy Yerushalayim, and the Yerushalayim would respond. Amongst the many Jews who came for Shabbos with all kinds of requests, 2 Jews had published Sfarim, or had written Sfarim. They wanted to publish them. And they wanted approval, they wanted Haskama from the great Yerushalayim, the Holy Tzaddik of Yerushalayim. One had published a complicated work of Pilpulim, Kedusha Teda, scholarly works on Talmud, and the other published a book of Hasidic stories. So the Makurev tested the Yerushalayim, revenue. There are 2 Hasidim who wrote works that they want approved for publication. One wrote a book of stories, one wrote a book of Kedusha Teda. Says the Yerushalayim, let me hear some stories first. See, the Mekudev reads some stories, the Rishon tells some stories on top of that, and then he says, now let me hear some Chiddushei Torah. So the Mekudev reads from the Chiddushei Torah, and then the Rishon himself adds Chiddushei Torah on top of that, and then he tells his Mekudev, write two Haskamas for the respective Shara. And Rabbi Isaac Homer is absolutely shocked. Rabbi Isaac Homer was a genius. Rabbi Isaac Homer was a Bukhar, was the firstborn. Every year at a Pesach, he made a siyam on the whole Shas.
Wow.
Rabbi Isaac. And a person writes a book of stories. I mean, with all due respect, it's very, very nice, but he didn't exactly sweat. The other guy wrote a book of genius, the Chiddushei Torah, and you're talking 200 years ago. They actually knew what they were talking about. And the stories come before the Chiddushei Torah. So the Rishon sits up and says, the Litvish Gon is wondering. Isaac didn't have to say anything. The Rishon knew everything. Why we, the royal we, first wrote an approval for the story, the book of stories, and then for the Chiddushei Torah. He said, we've imitated God. In his book, first comes the Sefer HaYashar of the Tzaddikim called Yeshurim, the Ovis and the Shvatim, and then comes the Mitzvahs. So we imitated it. In Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, it's brought down that the Seidus HaTorah, the secrets of the Torah, the mystery, the secrets, the Ein Sof of Torah is in the stories, not in the halachas. So the book of Genesis, Sefer Bereshis, belongs there. Halachically is another issue, because in Bereshis you have the Ein Sof, you have the higher than the way the Torah comes down. And what I'm suggesting, based on a variety of sikhs, is that when we do any mitzvah that existed before, although we're doing it because we got it at Sinai, we have that additional quality of Mesiras Nefesh, which is not present in most mitzvahs. You get it? Now there's a sikh in Chelek Amud about Gid HaNasher, which I did not prepare. You could look it up. I want to start with Echnas Sarchem. And it's a little bit of a squeeze, but I want to start Echnas Sarchem because we spent so much time talking about Bris Mila. I want to give you a different example of it. Okay, so if you don't mind, flip a couple of pages and you'll find a picture of a Rambam. Right there. This page. Okay. I printed the Rambam and a part of a Sikha, Rambam. And I would like to read the first two halachas of Rambam with you, and then dabble a little bit. If I had till 12 o'clock, I'd really get into this. With the Sikha, so that you will see the idea that there's two concepts in Echnas Sarchem. There's a concept in Echnas Sarchem which comes from Moshe Rabbeinu, and there's a concept in Echnas Sarchem which comes from Avrohom Avinu. You have to go. I gave you two stacks. You may have the wrong stack. No, that's the right one. Yeah. And that actually you could argue that the aspect of Echnas Sarchem, which we have from Avrohom Avinu, is greater than the aspect of Echnas Sarchem which comes from Mattan Torah. So let's begin by reading the Rambam. Perek Haba Asher, Mitzva of Bris Mila, it's a rabbinic commandment. L'vatachelem to visit sick, u'lenachem to console the mourners, u'lahit yameis and to carry away a deceased person, u'lahachnes hakala and to support and provide for the needs of a yichas and kala, u'lalavis archim and to accompany guests, u'lehis asik b'chol tzarechei hakvura and to be occupied in all manners of burial, laslis al-akosif to carry on his shoulder, to walk before the deceased, the lisped and to eulogize, the lachped and to dig a grave, the lisped and to bury. It's also a mitzvah to bring joy to a kala nachasen, or the sadam b'chol help them in all their needs. The Elohein gemilas chasadim, these are the acts of kindness, which have various different categories, and the first is milas chasadim shebegufay. You don't give money, you physically participate. Shein Lahem Shir, which are unlimited. It'll go to Shein Lahem Shir. The Afro Pisha Kol Mitzvahs Elu Midivrayim. Though these are rabbinic mitzvahs, not biblical, they're part of the mitzvah of Echad Kamecha. Kol Advarim Shatareitze, Shiyasu Eisam L'cha Achedim, anything you want somebody else to do, I say Ata Eisam L'chicha B'Teira Mitzvahs, you do it for them. Okay, halacha with all the beautiful stuff in Jesus Christ, packaged into one place. Be a good person, as they say in the PC world. Be a good person. Be nice to people. Help people out. Don't just send them a check. Show up in person. Do something. Halacha beis. Schar halavia b'ruba menakro. The mitzvah of the reward for accompanying a guest, it doesn't mean a dead person, is greater than all the rest. V'hu achoik, and this is the rule, shechokake Avrohom Avinu, that was fixed by Avram Avinu, v'derech hachesed shenohag bo, the ways of kindness which he conducted himself in. Machil oive drachim, he fed passers-by, umashke esam, and he gave them to drink. Umalava esam, and he accompanied them. Ugedeilach masaslarachim, the mitzvah of inviting in guests is greater than Yaakov Ne'ashkin, read the face of the Shechina. Shenem, as it's written, Vayar, and behold, the Hine Shteish Anashim, there were 3 men. The Leviim, Levaya and Yesem Nachman accompany them is a greater mitzvah than actually bringing them in and feeding them and giving them to drink. Amru Chachamim, the rabbi said, Kol She'enim Alav, if you don't accompany guests, Kilu Shefach Dam is you murdered them. A second halacha. Notice that in the second halacha, the Rambam invokes Avrohom. If you look at these 2 halachas, they seem very scattered. It seems very, very unmaimonidean. It doesn't seem orderly. He gives you a bunch of stuff in halacha aleph, and in halacha beis, he repeats a lot of the same things in halacha aleph. And he adds Avram, he invokes Avram Avinu. So I'll tell you first the Nekuda, and then I'll show you bits and pieces of the Shir. The Rebbe says like this. And I want to give you a Haggadah Taka from the Haftaleh Chamecha. What is the mitzvah of the Haftaleh Chamecha? What's the mitzvah? Love your fellow as yourself. What is the mitzvah? Everybody knows that it's impossible to love somebody else like you love yourself. It's a physical impossibility. It's a psychological impossibility. In Tanya Dal Rebbe gives us a mystical answer. But what does the Rambam say? What does love your fellow as you love yourself mean? It means treat your fellow as you want to be treated. Behave towards your fellow. Love your fellow doesn't mean love in your heart. It means do acts of loving kindness. And that's the rule in Yiddishkeit. Nobody really cares that much about intent. You did a good thing, it's good. You didn't do a good thing, it ain't good. Intent is nice in a world of emotions, post-Freud. Unfortunately, Peter was given before Freud. There's a couple of problems with it. We have to negotiate. Maybe we can make a New Testament of some sort. We have over here an expert, so maybe we can work it all out. But the definition of Judaism is action.
They say the road to hell is paved with
Good intentions, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better, right? It says the Rebbe like this. There's 2 halachas here. Halacha Aleph and Halacha Beis. And I'm going to put it in my words. Halacha Aleph is a mitzvah we got at Mattan Torah. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Halacha Beis is saying, do like Avrohom Avinu. Have good intentions. Do it with your heart. The difference in Halacha Beis and Halacha Aleph, not the details. Halacha Aleph tells you some rules, and Halacha Beis tells you different rules. No, that's not the difference in Halacha. Halacha Aleph is saying, do acts of kindness. Halacha Beis says it's not sufficient to do acts of kindness. You have to feel them in your heart. And you know what the proof is? Avrohom was kind to angels. What did they get from his kindness? Nothing. But that's Avrohom Avinu. Avrohom Avinu's union of kindness, it's not what I give you, it's what I give my heart. And that's why the Rambam brings which pasuk to prove the mitzvah of Achnas Zarchim, Vayar v'hine shteish anoshim, behold, there were 3 men. He doesn't speak about what he gave them. It speaks about his enthusiasm to be good to them. Because the second Indian, the Halacha Beis in Rambam here, is not defining what you do, it's defining your intention. And this is not from Mattan Torah. This we have to from Avrohom Avinu. Mattan Torah says do this and do this and do this and do this and do this. But then there is something else. You're a Jew. In addition to the fact that you got all 613 mitzvahs from Mattan Torah, no, there's a chayk shechakak Avrohom. We're also descendants of Abraham. And we inherited midas chesed. And that aspect of chesed, which is a transcendent aspect, is emphatically defined by your heart. That's why it's not giving the person eating and drinking. It's accompanying them. When you accompany a person, what have you done for them? Nothing. You showed that they matter. If you haven't accompanied a person, what have you taken away from them? Nothing. It's considered murder. So they never go through a whole discourse, not because they may get killed on their own, but because you show them you have no regard for them. The whole pshat in the second halacha is it's not about what you do but how you feel. And that's not from Mattan Torah, that's from Avrohom. And I'm suggesting that this aspect is the transcendent aspect. It's the bli gvul. Okay, so let's dabble in the sikh. We don't have enough time to read it all.
When you invite them out, you have to, how far, they just walk them out?
You have to walk a very short distance.
Isn't that related to the egel,
Front of the house, not good enough? Good enough? Yeah.
finding a dead person, that they...
Right, so the Rebbe refutes that possibility. He goes through it, and he says that's not the reason. If you don't mind, page 75, at the bottom of the first column. Says the Rebbe in the Minyan von Gamach, seine Bechlau, Schweibros. In the idea of doing kindness, there's two parts. Der Niffel von der Mitzvah, the effect of the Mitzvah. Was mit sein Meister von Gamach, when you did an act of kindness, is a Mamalach HaShmini, you help your friend out. Skip a line. Base, the second thing is, what you do, the Midas HaChesed, von dem Goyim HaChesed, the emotion of kindness of the giver. Says the Rebbe Ke'en says on in Achnosas Orchen, the zwei Pratim. There's two concepts in Achnosas. You have to find the place, 75. Yeah, there's two, the very, very bottom of the first column, right there. Achnosas Orchen. Aleph, the Yonim was der Eirech Bakumt, what the guest receives, the Michael Omaski giving them to eat and to drink and so on. Base, the Midas HaChesed von dem Baal HaBayis HaMarech, the emotion of kindness, not the act, the emotion of kindness from the host. The hisaninus, the concern, v'simas lev, and the involvement in detail, v'servais the merech that he shows to his guest. And the Rebbe says, Bechlau is by Yoni Gamach, when it comes to charity, skip the parenthesis, they get the niffle. The only thing that matters is what you do. Who cares about your intent? The Toiva v'tiyalos v'schavere bakumt, the pile. It's measured now in what you gave, what that person got. And the midas hachesed from the mother Magoyim, the emotion of the giver, right, is negea nit zum Avrohom HaKabbalah chesed, not zum Gavra HaGoyim chesed, to the person who gives it. Next paragraph, you see last paragraph on the page. Ba'achnosas orchim kumtzu achidish miyuchas, says the Rebbe. In achnosas orchim, there's two dinim. One, give the guy base, give him your heart. But the heart doesn't come from Mattan Torah, it comes from Avrohom. As the midas hachesed, the emotion of kindness, the hergish hachesed from the Balabayis Hamarech, the emotion of kindness from the host, is negir to the niffle, matters to the effect. Okay, and let me jump a little here. Okay, top of the page 76, first full paragraph. You got it? 76. Und das drückt sich euch in dem Chiyuv Lilveis Harchem. This is expressed not in his giving to eat and drink, and they accompany the guest. Warum Levaya is nit ken inyam malvain tzedakah shalaydach. You give nothing to a guest by accompanying him. He doesn't get richer. He doesn't get more satiated.
And security if it's late at night.
But you're walking 5 steps with him.
Oh.
You're not walking into the next town. You're walking out the door with him. You walk Dalar Amos. Nor after the parenthesis, it's an emotion of kindness. Skip the parenthesis again. What the guest feels, that what you did for him, it comes from the emotions, from the Balabayis HaMarech. Do you understand? Next paragraph. Ches. Und das ist der Hemmschich in der Rambam. So the Rambam means to say in Halacha 2. The reward for accompanying people is greater than else. This is not from Mishnah, this is from Avrohom Avinu. The derech hachesed shenag by the ways of kindness in which he conducted himself. Michael led the drachim, he fed passers by, umaskei to get to drink, umalavesh. The chok shechokakei Avrohom, what we have from Abraham, but it's not placed some plats and Michael Levi. It's not only about accompanying the person. It's about everything. What Avrohom adds is the emotion in it. Go to page 77. Page 77. First full paragraph. When Alpina Zeich moving, this also explains the time that the Rambam tells us for mitzvah, he speaks about hosting guests, and in a separate halacha, he speaks specifically about accompanying them. Why? In the aspect of accompanying the guest, you see expressed as the core of Achmas Orchim is the simas left in the marech, the emotion. You understand? Halachically, what we have to treat him nice. Halachically, what we have to feed him and give him water. Right? But then there's a different dimension. There's and that's your heart. And you read the rest of the Sikh, it's very reich. The Rebbe says that's why he brings an example from the Malachim, because Avrohom Taka gave them nothing. Because it wasn't about what they got. It was about Avrohom Avinu giving. Okay, and we could sit a whole night, or half a night, and give examples of this. But just one word. When you make a Bris Mila, you say, La'achnise, Bevrise, Shel, Avrohom Avinu. You say to bring him into the covenant of Abraham, but it's not true. The Bris Mila that we practice is the Bris Mila that Moshe Rabbeinu taught. And you know what the answer is? They're both true. As a mitzvah, the mitzvah of Bris Mila comes from Moshe Rabbeinu. But there's a covenant. The covenant is deeper than mitzvahs. The covenant goes to the core of every Jew, and it goes to the core, Kayachol, that Eibishter. The covenant is Mattan Torah. Because it's true, he gave us the mitzvah of doing the Bris Mila. The rule is, okay, one thing that I skipped over, and I prepared two packages. I prepared an advanced package. In the advanced package, I bring down several sikhs, page 142 and 15, where the Rebbe says like this. The rule of Einon Meidi with Mattan Torah is you're not allowed to learn the mitzvah from Mattan Torah. But once you learn the mitzvah, the paratim, you could learn from Mattan Torah. So the action habris is from Moshe Rabbeinu. The teichen habris is from Avrohom Avinu. One of the great examples for this, again, these are all things that I wanted to talk about, I don't have time. There's two mitzvahs in Judaism that are theoretical. Believing in God, which means to know Him intellectually, and believing in the unity of God, which means to know intellectually that we're a part of Him. Where do these mitzvahs come from? Take a look in Zayah, and it happens to be in the Shalah HaKadosh also. Where do we learn the Munah Nachtas from? Psukim in Parshas Va'era. The 4 Parshas Va'era. The Zohar speaks in the beginning of Manush Halakus. Look in the first page. He brings the Daitim Kinyan Hashem, and the question is asked, wait a minute. The mitzvahs of knowing God and knowing the unity of God are written in Parsha Tazriah before Mattan Torah. What's the answer? Once you have the essence of it in Shema Yisrael, and in Anochi, the details you can learn from Parsha Tazriah. And what I'm suggesting is, and it's a breitkeit. I've seen too many indicators for this, that any mitzvah which is before and after has a transcendent component, has an inyan which is higher than just a mitzvah in it. Chasachem is one example, and Bris Mila is a second. Bris Mila is a covenant.
It's also like a mitzvah.
It's an inyan atmi. It's a connection between the Jewish people and God. How could you make a covenant with a baby that's 8 days old? It's ridiculous. First of all, there's the physical abuse. Second of all, it's totally one-sided. There's no choice involved. So the Rebbe says in the Sikha, that's exactly why it's done at that age. Because it's not a choice. It's a covenant. You'll turn 13, you'll make choices. Bris Mila, God makes. This aspect of Bris Mila, that it's a covenant, is not for Moshe Rabbeinu. That's
I found out there's a letter where someone had time you do this to a little kid. So that says the biggest proof that it was Baratzi by him is that he does it to his kids.
Well, and Bris Mila is one of those mitzvahs. It's one of the great ironies. Jews who don't do any mitzvahs do Bris. It's the last one for a person to accept. It's ridiculous. It's brutal. Yidden who don't keep Shabbos and don't keep kosher and don't keep Pesach do a Bris. And the Rebbe explains because it goes to the core of a Jew. A Jew just knows you need a Bris. You need a circumcision. Anyway,
all the mitzvahs You say, what do you say in the Mishnah from Gida Nosha?
The Rebbe HaShich and Chelik Lamed. Look it up. And Gida Nosha, Parsha Vayishlach.
You know what I'm saying? Over here in the Mishnah is saying that Gida Nosha is Sinai, and it's Nichtav and Kodesh. So I can say by Bris also.
No, but the reason it's Nichtav and Kodesh is because of the Tam HaMitzvah. Why is it written in the Bible?
Yeah, but these two places, by Gida Nosha.
No, Bris Mila is repeated again in Parsha Tazriah, in our Parsha.
Why did that we just said the reason why it's repeated in Parsha Tazriah is because this was from Antero.
Okay, you're asking a question, but the question really is backwards. Since by Bris Mila, they just repeated it again, how could you say the Gida Nosha you put it over there? But that's really the better question. But in that Sikha, Chelik Lamed, the Rebbe talks about Gida Nosha, and the whole message of the Sikha is that Gida Nosha is a tiny little detail, and it represents something that's the essence of Yiddishkeit. That's the whole gedank of the Gida. Yeah. But the uniqueness of Yidden's Hashkoch. Yidden's Hashkoch. The Hashkoch in every prat. Let me just see if there's something that is very important that I wanted to discuss. And you understand what I'm trying to get across. In other words, I'm using this week's Parsha, where Bris Mila is mentioned again, as an excuse to open up a whole way of looking at the Torah. The Torah till Parshas Boy is less than the Torah after Parshas Boy, and it's more. And they're both true. It's less. It doesn't bring godliness into the world. It's more because there's no world. It's Ein Sof. And the story of the others is Ein Sof. The mitzvah is not part of Torah. It's Ein Sof. And when we do a mitzvah that's written before and written after, we have both inyanim, Beta Maris.
It might be said that up until Bo, we read about the people, and after Parshas Bo, we read about a people.
Okay, I was such a good thing different. Till Parshas Bo, we speak about the people. After Parshas Bo,
There's certain people.
we speak about
this
the
one
rule.
and that one and this one. But now, from there, we
A
read
nation.
about a nation.
Very good.
A people.
Also, before Mattan Torah, before Parshas Bo, we speak about the people. After Parshas Bo, we speak about the law.
True.
The law is given to
The mitzvah. Yeah. Okay, I had it as a made in the limud. And here I gave you plenty of work.